How do I turn those down? I need to turn them notifications down. I don't know. Hello, hello, hello. Let me know who's here, who's joining me tonight. Let me know who's joining me tonight. This beautiful Thursday, November the 17th, a week before Thanksgiving. Love and happiness. Wait a minute, something's going wrong. Something's on the phone. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Talking about when she can make you rise. Ring. Where y'all at? Where y'all at? Hello, 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 beautiful people. Let me know who's here in the comments. Let me know who's joining me tonight. Beautiful people. Hello, hello, hello. Who's joining me tonight? On this beautiful Thursday evening, November the 17th, a week before one of our favorite holidays. How are y'all doing tonight? I got both of my pages going. Hello, hello. I can't see who's on. Let me know who's on in the comments. And where you viewing from? Hello, hello, hello. How y'all doing? I can't see my comments. Comment and let me know y'all can see me. Let me know who is with me tonight. Who's viewing? I hope I got my comments right. Hello, hello, hello. We'll be getting started. Hey, Kiana, how are you? Thank you for joining me, beautiful. How are you? Hey, Mr. Goins, congratulations. How are you? Thank you for joining. Hello, 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 hello. Thank y'all for joining in. We're going to get started in a few minutes. Talking about a good topic tonight. A very needed discussion. And I want us all to join in. Doing well, hanging in there. Good. That's all you can do, girl. You're doing a good job. You know I'm here if you ever need me for anything. Anytime. But I am excited about this. We had unforgiveness last week, and it was so good, and God led me to do the root. Last week we talked about unforgiveness, how it affects our life, and you know, the unfairness of it. Great tuning in. I need this one. Oh man, I'm glad to have a male's perspective tonight. Thank you. This is a very, very deep-rooted issue that a lot of people, no gender specific, that we deal with. And a lot of times, forgiveness is hard. It's hard work. Thank you. You're looking beautiful. Thank you, Kiana. I'm trying, girl, with my blonde hair. I'm trying. Thank you, sweetheart. But yeah, forgiveness is hard. Forgiveness is hard. I don't care what anybody says. Forgiveness is hard. We're going to get started in a few minutes, about one more minute, so people can remember that we're on. But I keep these videos up on my page. If you go to PCMinistries, or if you go to my regular personal page and go to my videos, you'll look at all the videos that I have done over the last, when I was going through chemo, all those videos. They should all be there, especially on my PCMinistries page. And you all can look back through those videos. I don't get rid of the videos because people need this information. And again, for those of you that have not tuned in to PCMinistries or not really familiar with PCMinistries, this is a personal ministry that I began years ago. I am a transformation coach. I've been helping people transform their lives from the inside out for years. And when I got struck with cancer in 2021, God moved me into this realm and began ministering to me and pushing me to begin PCMinistries, because again, PCMinistries was developed and created by God to help us deal with what we feel from the inside out. And the reason I say inside out is because a lot of us can dress it up on the outside all we want, but when we tow it from the floor up on the inside, you know, it's just a matter of time that the ugly or the mess up or the issues from the inside is gonna show up on the outside. I'm trying to learn forgiveness is for you, not necessarily for them, but it's easy to stay hard to do. Yes. And like we talked about last week, we talked about forgiveness, and we talked about how forgiveness affects us. And it's almost like, Alex, you know, if you think about it, if you're real, and again, on this we are real on here. We're real. We don't dance around it and we don't sugarcoat it. Just think about it. If the person or thing that we refuse to forgive has gone on, Or, like for me, my job, I was there almost 10 years. They fired me in the middle of chemo. If I refuse to forgive them, don't you know they replaced me? They went on by their business. But if I'm still holding on to what they did to me, and I can't believe that they did that to me, and I was loyal and I was faithful, all of that's true. I was loyal, I was faithful. Yes, they were wrong when how they did it and why they did it. Yeah, they were wrong. But the point of the matter is, it was still done. And they have moved on. So for me to hold on to that almost 2 years later, that's not hurting them. That's making me bitter. It's making me angry. It's affecting my heart, my mind. So it's literally like me drinking poison and expecting them to die. And like how we were talking last week, like make it make sense. And that's how we have to look at our unforgiveness. Yes, a lot of the reasons why we refuse to forgive or why it's hard. We don't always refuse to forgive. A lot of times it's hard to forgive. A lot of those situations, we're justified in how we feel. We've been done wrong. We've been overlooked. We've been used, abused. We've been hurt. We've been betrayed. All of the reasons that would make us not want to forgive. All of that is true. But we have to get to a place where we let that stuff go. Because again, if you look at it, it is not hurting the person, the place, the thing, or the issue, or whatever it is that you refuse to forgive. It's not hurting them. It's not bothering them. It's only bothering us. Last week we talked about unforgiveness and how people have lost their marriages and relationships because of unforgiveness. We talked about how we harbor unforgiveness, and I love definitions. And when I say harbor unforgiveness, a harbor is a place, this is what we talked about last week. A harbor is a place of security and comfort, a body of water protected and deep enough to furnish secure anchoring. So to harbor means to keep, and we're talking about unforgiveness. So how we harbor unforgiveness is how we keep it into our heart and our mind. To keep means to retain possession of, cause it to continue on a course. To keep means to preserve and maintain, to watch over and defend. So when we're harboring unforgiveness, we're watching over it, we're keeping it, we're protecting it. That's what we do when we harbor. And it looks like when people try to talk to us about our unforgiveness, or if God tries to show us our areas of unforgiveness, or whatever the reason, the circumstance is, we always bring back up like, you don't know what they did to me. I can't believe they did this to me. And I can't do this because. That's what harboring unforgiveness does. We protect it. We're keeping it close. We're providing a place for it to be anchored deep into our hearts and our souls. And that's what we do with it. That's what I mean by when we say harboring unforgiveness. We also operate in grudges, resentment, and bitterness. So that's what we talked about last week. So after last week, I was reflecting on the video, and God said, we're going to talk about the root of unforgiveness. Because a lot of times we have unforgiveness, and a lot of times we don't know we're operating in unforgiveness, and a lot of times we don't understand just how deep and harmful holding on to unforgiveness is to us. Like Alex said, forgiveness is for us, not for them. Forgiveness frees us. It releases us. And it releases them from our hold and our deep trench. So tonight we want to talk about the root of unforgiveness. And I'm sipping on tea because I'm getting over something nasally and cold or whatever, and my throat gets a little dry. But I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. And please share the flyer. Share the live when you get a moment so people can get this information. So again, we want to talk about the root of unforgiveness. I want to give you the definition of root. And I like definitions because a lot of times we don't think about the definitions of words. We know words and we use them all the time, but we never really look at the intricate definition of what it is as it applies to what we're talking about. So that's why I like to give definitions, because it really pulls in the meaning and the seriousness of what we're talking about. So I want to give you the definition of root. We did this last week as well. A root is a part of a plant that provides nourishment. It's a source. That's a root. Again, tonight we're talking about the root of unforgiveness. To root in, to root down, means to establish deep and firm, to settle. Again, we're talking about the root of unforgiveness. We're talking about the part of unforgiveness that is deep and settled in our hearts and our spirits and our minds, and how we have harbored it and how it's gone deep. What is the purpose of a root? And guys, please keep your comments. I love the comments in the comment section. Your thoughts, your ideas, your yays, your nays. Please put them in the comment. I love for this to be interactive, because again, I'm not coming to you as PC Ministries because I have all the answers or because I have arrived. No, I'm not coming. I'm coming from mere experience and anointing of God. That's it. That's it. That is it. So we're gonna do this thing together. We all need to learn how to forgive. We all need to recognize our areas of unforgiveness. So the purpose of a root is to anchor the plant or a plant firmly, to help store food and nutrients. Nutrients must move from the soil to the surface of the plant's roots, and then the nutrients are able to cross from the outside of the inside, or from the outside to the inside of the plant's roots. We're talking about the purpose of a root. Purpose of root. Purpose of a root is also to transport water and minerals to the plant. So the purpose of the root is to feed the plant. Again, we're talking about the root of unforgiveness. The purpose of the root is to feed the plant. The purpose of the root is also to aid in reproduction. Again, we're talking about the root of unforgiveness. The purpose of a root, one of the purposes of the root, is to aid in reproduction. If we're talking about unforgiveness, and a part of the root of unforgiveness, the purpose is to aid in reproduction. What are we reproducing? More unforgiveness. Another purpose of the root is to attach. Okay? So in a nutshell, the root absorbs water and nutrients from the soil, and then they anchor the plant firmly. Then they help store food and nutrients and transport water and minerals to the plant. So the root keeps the plant fed, nourished, keeps it alive. Okay, again, we're talking about the root of unforgiveness. So what root of unforgiveness do you have in you that is keeping your unforgiveness alive, keeping it deeply rooted in you, is furnishing it, is feeding it? Okay, the soil is the upper layer of the earth where the plants grow. So what is the soil of your unforgiveness? Felicia said a cycle if you don't kill the root. Hey, you got that right, Felicia. It is definitely a cycle, and we have to kill this thing tonight. You can't heal from what you don't reveal. And a lot of times we won't get to the place to where we are acknowledging this area of our life because we're embarrassed, we're shamed, what have you. But we're still dealing with it behind the scenes or on the inside. And that's not fair. We all deserve to live life and life more abundantly, and dealing with unforgiveness and being tied down and rooted down to something so sickening is not going to get you that abundant life that God gave his only begotten son for. So in a nutshell, the soil is fertile, wow, and helps create an atmosphere for growth and promotes a relationship with the plant. So again, we're talking about the root to unforgiveness. The purpose of the root is to anchor the plant, to store food and nutrients, to transport water to the plant, to feed the plant. That's the purpose of the root. So again, we're talking about the root of unforgiveness. So the root purpose of unforgiveness is to feed unforgiveness, to feed your bitterness, to feed your hate, your envy, your jealousy. It's to feed that. So, and then the root anchors your unforgiveness firm. Again, we're talking about the purpose of the root. It stores it so it can feed it. It also aids in reproducing it. So the root of your unforgiveness, the root of our unforgiveness, is aiding in the reproduction of more unforgiveness, or more areas that branch off of unforgiveness: bitterness, envy, jealous, sickness, illness. That's a whole nother life. That's how it reproduces. It doesn't necessarily reproduce more unforgiveness. It reproduces more sickness and more different things that attach itself to holding on to this. Okay? What has unforgiveness created in the soil of your heart and mind? And again, this is a question to ask yourself as we talk about this together. This is something I had to ask myself as I was preparing my notes. I was like, Lord, what areas in my life do I need to forgive, or have I not forgiven? So I ask you this question. Ask yourself, what has unforgiveness created in the soil of your heart and your mind? And again, the soil is an area where you grow, your territory. Okay, it's the fertile ground that you stand in, the fertile ground that you operate in, which is your heart and your mind. Okay, what has unforgiveness created in the soil of your heart and mind as it pertains to whoever or whatever, or the way, when I say what has it created, how do you look at certain things now as a result of the area of your unforgiveness? How do you look at certain people as a result of the area of your unforgiveness that you're dealing with? What kind of soil has unforgiveness created in your heart and mind? Some people are just bitter. Some people are just angry. Some of us are revengeful. Some of us are just hateful. We're bitter. We're envious of others. We're jealous. What has it created in you? The area that you can't, the area of your unforgiveness, what has that created in your heart and your mind? And again, this is questions to ask yourself. Someone said that it has created insecurity in them. You're not worth insecurity. You're worth so much more than insecurity. We're worth so much more than hatred and bitterness and jealousy and anger. We're worth so much more than that. And I'm just so thankful that you all are here tonight, because we need to get to the bottom of, we need to get to the root of why we can't forgive. And again, we're talking about the root. In order to kill something, you have to cut it at the root. Hey, T, it has created anger, hurt, and fear. And you are not worth, God did not create you as a vessel, give you this fearful and wonderfully made body to house anger, hurt, and fear. That is not our portion. That is not our portion. So we have got to get to the root of why. Again, like I said earlier, the reason we don't forgive, or the reason we can't forgive, or the reason forgiveness is so hard, because a lot of times what happened hurt. Again, forgiveness is hard. It's hard work. And we have to get to a place to where we acknowledge it. We own our part in it, if there is a part in it. And we get to the bottom, which is the root, so we can cut it off. Because a lot of times we can forgive, and then we look up and it's back. Like an unforgiveness is back. It's like it comes back. Why does it keep coming back? Because we didn't get to the root of why we didn't forgive anyway. Just think about it. Person one did something to you, hurt you or whatever, and your relationship with them, you can't forgive person one. Okay? Person two has nothing to do with person one. But if person two looks like or does something that reminds you remotely similar to the reason you can't forgive person one, then that unforgiveness is going to raise its head up with person two. So it's going to attach itself to each relationship that possibly reminds you of the hurt, the bitterness, the reason you can't forgive anybody else. If it can show up anywhere, in the workplace, at the gym, with your family members, your spouse, your siblings, any area that we have not addressed, any area of offense, which we're gonna get to that too, that we have not addressed, that's just laying in our soil. Again, our soil is our heart and our mind. That's the soil of our heart. So any offense, again, that is a root. Offense is a root that feeds unforgiveness, because you're holding on to the offense. And you know what? I've been saying this for years, and it's something that I learned years ago. Offense is a choice. You have the power and the right to choose whether you want to be offended or not. Think about it. Somebody can say something to you, do something to you, as long as they ain't putting their hands on you. Side note. Somebody can say something to you, do something to you. And yeah, they're wrong. And you can, yeah, buddy. But it's your choice to respond. It's your choice to allow it to hurt you. It's your choice to allow it to affect you. Especially when you're old enough. It's your choice. You can walk away from that. You can choose to say, not today. That's your choice. So that's why I say offense is a choice. You make a decision whether you want to allow yourself to be offended or not. Somebody said repeated behavior by the person or persons you've forgiven will start the root. Yes. And that's because we have not, again, we talked about last week too, when we talked about forgiveness, we talked about forgiveness does not necessarily mean you have to deal with that person. You can forgive a person and love them from a distance. It does not mean you have to deal with them, because if a person's behavior has not changed, like I use myself, for example, there was a situation where I forgave someone and I was giving the relationship a chance, but they were showing the same behaviors that previously made me feel less than, just not right about the situation or the relationship. It just wasn't, it was one-sided. And I decided to just cut it. Like, no bitterness, no nothing. I forgave them. Fork it, go on about your business, I'll go on about mine. And that's it. So don't think just because we forgive someone that we have to be a doormat or a punching bag. That's not what forgiveness means. Forgiveness is freeing. Forgiveness is releasing them and yourself. Okay? We just have to make sure that when we forgive, that we don't move into resentment, because you can still forgive, but you can pick up resentment. They're close, very close, work very close together. So you want to make sure that when you forgive, if you're still talking about it over and over, you still cringe and all of that, you might be still operating in unforgiveness, or you might even be operating in a little bit of resentment. Okay? And that's a separate teaching. Okay, so just because we forgive don't mean we have to be a doormat or a punching bag. Somebody said just like a hair, you have to get it at the root or it will grow back into ingrown hair, which hurts, or it can grow back and multiply. So getting it, yes ma'am, exactly. And that's what we're talking about tonight, the root of unforgiveness. Okay, the root of unforgiveness, and I'm going to say bitterness along with that, goes deep into our human soul and is fed by any offense that lies hidden in the soil of our heart. So when we have offense that we haven't dealt with, or that we're harboring or holding on to, that can turn into offense. It's closely related to offense. Unforgiveness and offense latches on and holds very tight. And again, the purpose of the root of unforgiveness, is bitterness, offense, and it's going to feed unforgiveness. It's going to feed it. It's going to feed it so it can keep it fed and nurtured and nourished, so it can plant deep into your heart and soul and begin to grow and attach itself to other issues and things that you don't need. It's designed, the root of unforgiveness, the bitterness and the hatred and the anger and all of that is designed to reproduce. It's designed to attach itself to other areas of your body. And again, unforgiveness, it aids in sicknesses and disease, and we don't want that. We don't want our arteries and our ulcers and headaches and all this stuff. We don't need all that stuff. So we have to get to the root of why you can't forgive. Again, what has unforgiveness created in the soil of your heart? Think about that person, that thing, or that situation that you can't seem to forgive, and ask yourself why. You may not get that answer tonight, and hopefully this topic won't just end with you tonight. Maybe you'll sleep on this, you'll wake up tomorrow, and you will kind of keep going over this until you get to the root of the areas of your unforgiveness. Again, unforgiveness is going to keep recurring unless we get to the root of it. What is the root of your anger? What is the root of your resentment? What is the root of your hurt? What is the root of your jealousy? What is the root of your bitterness? Why are you bitter? Who are you bitter with? Why are you angry? You have to ask yourself these questions. We have to get to the root of our issues and remove band-aids, because a lot of our issues, our bitterness, our hatred, our anger, our insecurity, all of the things that we're thinking about, we put band-aids on these things just to cover them up, and we haven't really dealt with why it's there in the first place. So we have to remove the band-aids that we put over these sores that's producing a blockage in the blood flow to our health and our arteries and things like that. We have to remove this and get to the root of why we haven't addressed these issues, why you can't seem to forgive. We have to get to the root of this. And again, that's what the purpose of this live is tonight. We're talking about the root of unforgiveness, the part of your unforgiveness that is supplying nourishment and keeping your unforgiveness fed, keeping your unforgiveness alive, keeping your unforgiveness so deep into your heart and your soul that you couldn't forgive if you tried. Okay? Unforgiveness has more known symptoms than we think. It grows, expands, and binds while deepening its roots in our hearts and our minds. So the longer we allow unforgiveness, the longer we allow, and again, if you don't know you have it, then it's not really a lot you can do about it. But when you come to the awareness that you have unforgiveness, once you know better, hopefully you do better. Because again, you don't deserve to be in bitterness and hatred and anger and insecurity. You don't deserve that. God didn't create you for that. That is not the abundant life. That is not part of the portion that God died and gave his only begotten son for us to walk around in bondage and hurt and unforgiveness. God didn't, that's not your portion. You don't deserve that. So part of your strength and your power is to acknowledge the areas of your unforgiveness, and let's get to the root. What is feeding it? What is it? I can't tell you what it is. This is something that you have to ask God for yourself, and this is something that you have to dissect within your heart, and your own mind and your own soul. Okay? What is the real root of your unforgiveness? Sometimes we avoid it. We don't like to deal with past wounds or rejections. Could rejection be a root of your unforgiveness? You can't believe that they did whatever they did to you, or they didn't want you, or they didn't like you. Okay, what about divorce? Some people have been divorced and they mad and bitter and hurt. Justifiably so. Some divorces are just ugly, depending on the circumstances surrounding the divorce. But you gotta get to a place to where you forgive, because again, it is not hurting that person. Okay? With avoidance, we have pushed down wounds and rejections and covered them up without dealing honestly with them, the things that are interfering with our communications and our actions and our behaviors. We push those things down so far, and again, they're deeply rooted. Again, that's the purpose of the root of unforgiveness. Those issues and those things, the root of that hurt, the root of that bitterness that's attached to your unforgiveness is just a root goes deep and it attaches itself to you. Okay? And a lot of times we can't forgive because it's so deep and we haven't addressed. Some people need therapy. Some people need counseling to help them deal with an area of unforgiveness. Y'all, I am a transformation coach. I am not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm a transformation coach. I help people deal with what they feel from the inside out. If you find where you can't seem to heal from this or whatever you're seek therapy, seek counseling, or even seek me as a transformation coach. That's what we're designed to do. All of it works together. So sometime when you find that you can't do it on your own and you know you need to, you might need to seek some help. It is nothing wrong with therapy. There's nothing wrong with counseling, and there's nothing wrong with a transformation coach. I have plenty of clients right now, and they'll tell you how I'm helping them, and not me. I'm not taking the blessing from it because it's all God. But I am a transformation coach, and I help people deal with what they feel from the inside out. And people are being healed. People are learning. People are growing. They're getting their strength back and their power back. So sometimes when you find that you can't forgive and you try and it keeps coming back, you may need to go talk to somebody. Therapy, counseling, transformation coach. And you're right, T. It does go hand in hand with prayer and having faith. It really does. And you have to do that. Once you find where you can't do it yourself. Shelby said, Shelby said, it's often hard to even recognize that we have issues because we don't have a foundation of what a healed person looks like. So we don't see our flaws because we often don't have a standard. You are absolutely right. And I've dealt with an unhealed mother. So I didn't even have an example of what a healed person looks like or what the work of healing looks like or what the work of healing consists of. Because we don't talk about it because it's embarrassing or it's that or it. So then the cycles goes on. And I've always said back when I was mentoring young girls and mothers and stuff like that, an unhealed mother gives birth to an unhealed daughter, who gives birth to an unhealed daughter, who grows up to be an unhealed, and the cycle just goes on and on and on because we don't talk about it or we don't do the work that we need to do to heal from the inside out, so we don't attach this to other areas of our lives. Do you know that the real root for unforgiveness can also be where we rehearse or allow past incidents, intentionally or not, to beat us up daily when we don't forgive others? What is the real root of that? What is the real root of you not being able to forgive? You have to ask yourself that question. Those of us that are really wanting to get to the root, those of us that really want to get to the root of what it is and cut it, sever it, curse it. See, when you really want to get there, you'll ask yourself these hard questions. If you have a person that you can't forgive, ask yourself why. Why are you holding on to whatever it is? And in that, don't look at that as a bad thing, as when I say why, ask yourself why you're holding on to it. You have to ask yourself why. And then that's going to make you look at the situation and pick it apart and pick out your part. Like, own your part in that. You will address what happened. Yes, it was wrong. It wasn't right. You didn't deserve it. All of that. But you'll get to the bottom of why you can't release them. This is the aim of the whole broadcast. This whole live is we're talking about the root of unforgiveness. We're talking about that thing that is feeding your unforgiveness, that hurt, that bitterness, that anger, the divorce, the rejection. All of that is feeding your unforgiveness. And we've got to get to the source of your revenge, the root of your hurt. We got to get to what is nourishing your bitterness. We have to get to where some of this stuff comes from our parents. Some of us had bitter mamas. I'm not saying all of us, but some of us had bitter mamas. So we pick up things along the way that we adapt. I don't know. But if you're asking yourself, how do I get to the root of what I'm dealing with? Don't be afraid of the answer. Don't be afraid. Because again, in order to move from unforgiveness to forgiveness, we've got to get to the root and cut it. And again, a root is a part of the plant that provides the nourishment. So we have got to stop. Cut at the root what is feeding our unforgiveness. And again, that could be divorce, rejection, hurt, people that have hurt us, jobs that have fired us, people that have done us wrong, friends that don't treat us right, family members that it could be anything. We have got to get to the source, the root of what is feeding your unforgiveness in that area. So let me ask you this. Who or what do you need to forgive? Ask yourself that question. Who or what do you need to forgive? Write it down on a piece of paper. Write their name down. Whatever the situation is, write it down on a piece of paper. Doesn't matter how many it is or how long ago it was. Write it down. Who or what do you need to forgive? I encourage you to do this. Those of us that want to get to the root, those of us that want to move from unforgiveness to forgiveness, you need to be doing this. Who or what do you need to forgive? What's his name? What's her name? Who is it? What family member is it? What ex is it? What baby dad is it? What baby mama is it? Yeah. We got to recognize it to cut it. So who or what do you need to forgive? I'm asking yourself that. And then once you say that, say, Lord, I forgive, and whoever it is, whatever his name is, whatever her name is, whatever the company is, whatever the situation is, Lord, I forgive so and so and so and so, and mean it in your heart. Yes, y'all, I mean this. I have done this, and this is so freeing, and it is hard. Sometimes it can be ourselves that then, and if it's yourself, Lord, I forgive myself for holding on to. Lord, I forgive myself for whatever I did, blah, 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 blah. Lord, I forgive myself. And then if we don't know how to forgive ourselves, Lord, teach me how to forgive myself for the mistakes I've made. Please, Lord, help me to forgive myself and move past the failure that I did to myself. The self-inflicted things that I have done to myself that have shown up in my behavior and my thought pattern and my actions. God will forgive you, but you do have to forgive yourself. So put your own name there. Lord, I forgive, and say it and mean it with your heart and your soul. If you have to say it every day, several times a day, that is okay. That is okay, because that is how you're going to cut the root of what is feeding your unforgiveness. How do you want to live your life going forward so you're not dealing with unforgiveness? Think about that. Keep that as a forefront. When you deal with unforgiveness, you think about how you want to live your life going forward so that you're not dealing with unforgiveness in your future. If you think about it, when you think about the areas of your unforgiveness, it don't make you feel good. Unforgiveness don't feel good. Forgiveness don't feel good either. But unforgiveness feels worse than forgiveness. Again, last week we said unforgiveness allows a root of bitterness to grow. When we stay in unforgiveness, we are allowing the root of bitterness to take control, to settle and establish itself deep in our hearts. But forgiveness stops the root. Forgiveness stops the root. And you have to mean that from the inside, y'all. It's don't play with it. Don't play with forgiveness and unforgiveness. Don't play with it, because it's only hurting you. It's only hurting you. Like, make it make sense. Make your unforgiveness make sense. And again, some things, forgiveness is hard. I can say it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Yes, it is hard. But how do you want to live your life going forward with unforgiveness for your future? It's up to you. So you want to ask yourself, who or what do you need to forgive? Lord, I forgive so-and-so. And mean it. Again, if you have to say it over and over and over, then say it over and over and over until you feel that release. Till you see this person and you're no longer bound up. Or you hear this person's name and it doesn't bind you up. Or you go somewhere and you're in a situation that reminds you of something and it no longer binds you up. You're free. Forgiveness frees you. It frees you, and you won't experience this freeness until you forgive. You won't know. You won't know what it feels like until you forgive. Until you forgive. And God tells us to forgive just like He so freely forgave us. If that'll help you to just think about the times that God has forgiven you. And you know you was wrong from the toe, and God still forgave. So if He can do it, we can do it. He's telling us that we have to, in order to come close to Him, we have to forgive. We can't bring unforgiveness into the presence of God. So maybe that'll help you with your forgiveness, knowing that you can't come to God with unforgiveness in your heart. Let me tell y'all a story about a sycamine tree. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but in this study, I came across the sycamine tree. And the sycamine tree has very large and deep root structure. Now, y'all just listen to me. Just hear me out. And it's 8:48, so we got a few more minutes. The sycamine tree has a very large and a deep root structure. In Luke 17:6, He said, if ye had faith as a grain of a mustard seed, you might say unto the sycamine tree, be thou plucked up by the root, and be thou planted in the sea, and it should obey you. Okay? The sycamine tree was known to have one of the deepest root structures of all the trees in the Middle East, because its roots went down so deep into the earth, it was very difficult to kill. We're talking about the root of unforgiveness. So every time you hear the word root related to the root of unforgiveness, it said its roots went down so deep into the earth. I'm going to say our earth is our heart and our soul. And it was very deep, very difficult to kill. It said hot weather and blistering temperatures had little effect on the tree because it was tapped into a water source deep down under the earth. Again, the roots, we talked about the definition of a root: to establish deep and firm, to settle. Okay? Said even cutting the sycamine tree at the base did not guarantee its death, because the roots were hidden under the ground, enabling it to keep resurfacing again and again. So think about the root of our unforgiveness. Some of these roots are so deep that we can't even see them. We have to kind of go on a journey. Sometimes it'll make us go on a journey to get to the root of why you won't forgive, why you can't forgive, or why you're holding on to unforgiveness. It could be a journey, and sometimes it goes deep, and it's hard to cut because it is so deep. So a lot of times, surface talk, feel good stuff dealing with unforgiveness, it doesn't work because it goes deeper than that. It's deeper than that. No wonder Jesus used a tree as an example of unforgiveness and bitterness. He used a sycamore tree as an example of unforgiveness and bitterness. He said, like the sycamore tree, bitterness and unforgiveness must be dealt with clear to the roots. This is what God said. Or they'll keep springing up again and again. The roots of unforgiveness go down deep into the human soul and is fed by any offense that lies hidden in the soil of our heart. Again, we're looking for offense. Offense is a root of unforgiveness. So you want to look for areas that you are offended, that you just walk around in offense. And then you want to look at where you're how are you so easily offended? Look at that as well. Don't look at who's doing the offending. Don't look at them. We ain't paying attention to none of that. You want to look at why you're so easily offended. Why someone can say or do something and your whole day jacked up. Why? Why is it so easy for that to happen? What about me allows myself to just go be tossed to and fro with every little thing? Ask yourself why. Ask yourself why. A hidden source of offense can cause unforgiveness to resurface in a person's life over and over and over. And again, like I said earlier, those of us that are serious about getting to the root of unforgiveness, it's a serious decision for us to rip them roots of unforgiveness, bitterness, hate, revenge, hurt, insecurity, all of that, anger, all of that out of our heart once and for all, so that it won't resurface. It takes work. It takes work. Sometimes you go and you may have to come up for some air at some of the truth behind our unforgiveness. And again, if you find where it's too much, take a break. Just breathe. Go see somebody. If you feel like you can't do it on your own, go call me. I'm a transformation coach, and yes, I'm put it out there. Go see a therapist. Go see a counselor. You may need some help with the tools that it takes to get to the bottom of it. Okay? So again, it takes a strong person, or you have to make a decision to rip these roots up. Okay? You have to make a decision. With the sycamore tree, the roots are deep. The roots grew very deep in order to reach the water beneath the desert, which made removing the tree difficult. So unfortunately, cutting down the stump was not enough when getting rid of the root of the sycamore tree. You had to dig each main root out and remove it from the source. So some of us have various roots. Again, if you've been dealing with an area of unforgiveness for years and it has sown deep into your heart and your mind, remember, one of the purposes of the root was to aid in reproduction. Remember in the beginning, I gave the purposes of a root, and one of the purposes was to aid in reproduction. So what does your unforgiveness, what is it reproducing in your life? It doesn't necessarily reproduce more unforgiveness. It could reproduce other areas, other issues. It can reproduce more unforgiveness, but it can also reproduce different issues and attach itself to other things. Okay? So, it's much like it just said, you had to dig each main root out and remove it from the source. Remove it from whatever is feeding it. If you're dealing with somebody and they're feeding your source of unforgiveness, you got to cut that. Or you have to remove yourself from their presence or reevaluate the relationship. Or if you're doing something, i.e., it could be anything, and it is feeding, it's the source of your bitterness. It's the source. If you hanging around some girlfriends or some people and everybody just bitter, you might need to remove yourself from this group, because that is feeding your unforgiveness. It's feeding it. It's keeping it alive. It's nourishing it. And that's the root of bitterness, is a root of unforgiveness. So you have to look at that. This is much like harboring unforgiveness, which can be deeply rooted in our souls and develop large trees of bitterness that are not easily removed unless dug up and dealt with one experience at a time. You have to deal with it one experience at a time. Okay? It also said about the sycamore tree, as we get ready to close, the fruit of the sycamore tree was very bitter. It said the fruit was so bitter that in order to eat it, you had to eat one small bite at a time. So it often took a person all day to eat one piece of fruit of the tree. That's similar to how we do people who don't deal with unforgiveness. That's similar to how we when we don't deal with unforgiveness, we take one bite of offense, we wallow on it and ponder it, we digest it, and we repeat the cycle. Like Felicia said earlier, the cycle continues. When we've been offended, we take the offense and we wallow in it. Oh, I can't believe this, and I'm gonna tit for tat and pity, and petty Betty and all this stuff. That's wallowing in it. We ponder on it, we digest it, we allow it to take root, and then we repeat the cycle over and over. That makes a person's bitterness and unforgiveness develop more and more with each bite, each wallow, each conversation, the life that we give it, and it keeps that person in poor spirit and wealth. When we get stung by offenses and allow them to populate bitterness in our hearts, then the bitterness is consumed. It has consumed who we are. Then we share that bitterness with other people and we sting them, and we just keep it going on and on and on. So again, we're talking about tonight the root of unforgiveness. If you permit bitterness and unforgiveness to grow in your life, it won't be long until this attitude or this has killed your joy, stolen your peace, and damaged your spiritual life, because you're not going to be able to operate wholly, fearfully and wonderfully made, operating in unforgiveness. You're just not going to be able to do it. You're just not. So I pray tonight something was said tonight that will help us, aid in us getting to the root of our unforgiveness. And again, like we said, the root is what is your hatred is feeding your unforgiveness. Whatever it is, bitterness, if it's nourishing, it's providing nutrients and minerals to your unforgiveness to keep the unforgiveness alive. If it's hurt, if it's a divorce, if it's rejection, if it's a breakup, if it's a family member, whatever it could be, you have to get to the root of what is feeding that. And a lot of times it may point to us, okay? A lot of times it may point to someone else, but you will come to the knowledge of what that root is. And just like the roots of the sycamore tree, we have to get clear down to the root and cut it at the core so it won't keep reproducing in our hearts and our minds. In our hearts and our minds. So you don't deserve to deal with the root of unforgiveness. You don't deserve to be dealing with unforgiveness anyway, but because we are dealing with unforgiveness, we have to get to the root of why. Because your body was not created to house bitterness and unforgiveness and hurt and anger and revenge and jealousy and envy. You weren't. We're not supposed to be carrying that in our body. Okay, and again, I'm a firm believer that unforgiveness holding on to unforgiveness and bitterness and things like that creates sickness and disease in our bodies. So you want to make sure you do everything within your power, everything within your knowledge to cut and curse these things at the root. I read something that said we have to use the sword of the Spirit, which is, I think Shelby said it in here, the Word of God, to get to the source of what some of this is, the sword of the Spirit, and go deep into the root system and cut this disease off. We have to curse the root and command it to dry up and die, and all other roots that stem off of the main root to dry up. Any root, that is showing itself, I pray that God will reveal every root that's rooted deeply into your heart and your soul, that he will reveal it to you and then show you how and where and how far back to cut this root so it won't keep resurfacing. That is my prayer. That is my prayer. We speak to the original seed of your unforgiveness. We speak to the original seed of your hurt, your anger, your bitterness, your trauma, anything that is trying to attach itself to you and feed and attach itself deep into your heart to keep you bound in unforgiveness. We curse it at the root right now in the name of Jesus. We cursing it at the root. We thanking you right now that you are not acknowledging this area in your life that needs deliverance. We are acknowledging this area in your life that needs to be researched. Okay, again, tonight we're talking about the root of unforgiveness. Last week we talked about unforgiveness and how we harbor it. Well, tonight we talked about the actual root and how the root of unforgiveness, it could be divorce, it could be hurt, bitterness, anger, anything that happened to us that was unfair, that was wrong. It doesn't even have to be our fault, but we are holding on to it. And a lot of us, we can't seem to forgive. We don't know how to forgive. We think we forgive and then it rears itself up and we're back into unforgiveness again because there is a root attached to your unforgiveness. And again, the purpose of the root is to aid in reproduction. And it doesn't necessarily have to, hey Shalonda, doesn't necessarily have to reproduce more unforgiveness. It can reproduce in sickness. It can reproduce in other issues. Okay, because it attaches itself to our hearts and our souls and our minds. The purpose of a root is to anchor firmly, to set in place, to serve as a source. So the root of unforgiveness, there is something in our lives that's serving as a source of nourishment to feed the unforgiveness. So again, that could be hatred, bitterness, jealousy, hurt. It could be anything. And you have to ask yourself, what is it? Who is it that you need to forgive? What is it that you need to forgive? And once you come up with who that person is or these people are, that issue is, say, Lord, I forgive, and say their name. Say the company. Say the fact, whoever it is, whatever it is, say it. If it's yourself, Lord, I forgive myself for. Okay, and it's okay. And if you have to do that over and over and over every day, it's okay. Until you get to the point where you're getting to the core of that root, the clear core of that root, and severing that thing, cursing it at the end, and cursing it and not to pick it up anymore. You have to mean this. Again, God gave his only begotten Son that we might have life and life more abundantly. And our abundant life does not consist of us housing bitterness and unforgiveness in our temples. That is not our portion. That is not our portion. So I thank you all for tuning in to PC Ministries, where we deal with what you feel from the inside out. I pray that something was said on tonight that will aid you in getting to the root of your unforgiveness and cursing that thing at the root so it does not resurface. It does not keep coming up. Any area that you find that you are operating in offense, that you get to the root of it so you don't have to operate in that. And again, we weren't created to house unforgiveness, to carry that around in our heart and our soul. You're worth so much more than your hatred and your bitterness and your anger, holding on to that stuff. Okay, you're worth so much more than that. So I thank you all for tuning in. There won't be PC Ministries Thursday Night Live next Thursday because we will be eating turkey. So I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. We will be back on December the 1st for Thursday Night Live. And I just hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much, but eat everything you want to eat. Enjoy your family and special time of Thanksgiving. My Thanksgivings are hitting a little bit different now with this new narrative that I have now. This life is just so much meaningful now. It has so much more meaning. Kiona, thank you for your obedience and time you put in. Yes, ma'am. Anytime. That's my reasonable service, Kiona. And I appreciate that. I just pray that you all take this and apply it to your life and begin to get to the root of any unforgiving areas and any offensive areas that we're dealing in. Again, forgiveness is hard. It is hard, but you owe it to yourself to forgive, because again, like Mr. Alex Goins said earlier, it's not for them, it's for us. It releases us and it releases them. It frees us and it releases them. Okay, and it doesn't, holding on to unforgiveness doesn't hurt the other person. Like, make it make sense. Like, it doesn't hurt them. They've gone on about their business. We can't, sometimes we think holding on to forgiveness is like punishing them. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. So let it go. We have to get to the point and though, like I said earlier, if you find where you can't let it go, there's nothing wrong with seeking some help. This was much needed. Yes, ma'am. It is time to apply. And a lot of us are dealing with unforgiveness. And if you find where you just can't get to the bottom of it on your own, if you can't go to your pastor or a ministerial team or, what have you, there's nothing wrong with therapy. There is nothing wrong with counseling. I am a transformation coach. I help people deal with what they feel from the inside out. Reach out. I would be more than happy to help and assist, giving you tools to help you get to the bottom of this, or any other area where you're dealing with some things on the inside. Again, I thank you all for tuning in tonight. I pray that you all have a wonderful evening, a beautiful weekend, safe. Enjoy this weather. And enjoy your family and your Thanksgiving on next Thursday night. Also, I want to let you all know that PC Ministries is having a holiday dinner in the Olive Garden on Merritt Island on December the 4th. It's a Sunday at 6 p.m. I'm getting ready to put the flyer out. So if you would like to attend that, I want all of us, if you're in this area and you are free on December the 4th, I would love for you to come out. Let's have a meet and greet. I have met some of you. I know some of you, but a lot of you I don't know. So I would love to meet you on Sunday, December the 4th at the Olive Garden on Merritt Island at 6 p.m. The flyer is going to go out. Please RSVP. Look at the flyer. There's a QR code on there that'll be on there that'll take you to a RSVP for seating. This will be a buy your own dinner. And we just plan on having some fun, some laughter, and just loving on one another on that night. Again, that's December the 4th at 6 p.m. Everyone is welcome to attend. I would love for you to come, and let's just have a nice holiday dinner together and just enjoy some fellowship. So again, I thank you all for tuning in. I won't be here next Thursday because it's Thanksgiving, but I'll see you all on December the 1st. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I love y'all.